Well, it took a little while, but now I officially get it. So hopefully by now you've seen Lon's great review of the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. He gave it a stellar review and gave it high marks not only for its unique build, but also for everything that was happening underneath the surface. The software has been dialed back a little bit and the camera experience is top notch. Those are still points that I had in my Samsung Galaxy S6, the original review. And Lon basically just corroborated it and said that the edges, even though some of the capabilities behind them may not be very useful for a lot of you out there, it still adds to the experience. But I did get a retail version of the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge about a week ago, and I did do an unboxing, so I wanted to present to you the unboxing, and then I will be able to give you my 1 week later thoughts on the S6 Edge. And so here it is, the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. You're going to notice already in the Samsung branding and even in the box itself that things have been changing with this new version of the Galaxy. We no longer have that restructured wooden cardboard type of deal here. This is a white package, and you'll also notice that the logo itself for the Galaxy, in the past it used to be all in uppercase, but now we have a little bit more of a dialed back branding. So I'm gonna go ahead and just sort of break the seals over on the top and on the bottom. It does say here European SIM only, but that is not going to be an issue as I've already had with the S6. And here comes the actual phone itself. So here is the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge. We can already see on the sides, you have the edges that go downward into the box. So obviously we're gonna need to kind of use the plastic to lift up the phone itself. So there is the phone. It does feel really nice already, and we're gonna go ahead and get that plastic off and get our first feel of it. There you go. It does feel quite nice. Even with those edges, we still have a frame that is very pronounced on the left and right sides that will allow for a very nice grip. The earbuds inside of this package do look to be of a pretty high quality. They're not necessarily going to be, audiophile headphones, but they do have the earbud in-ear earbud design, along with a couple of extra sleeves right here for them. And of course, what is going to be the fast charging. You can already see there it says adaptive fast charging, and this is what will be used to get the battery life in under half an hour to where you need it to be if you are in an emergency situation. And of course, the micro USB charging cable right here on the side. So those are actually just the contents of the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge box. We're gonna go ahead and just put that all on the side here, and I will power up the phone, pop my SIM in there, and it will be the phone that I will use for the next few days to compare it to the S6 in particular. For all intents and purposes, this screen is just a screen. It just happens to have curves on the sides. And a lot of the functions underneath the edges, like the notification center or the RSS feeds, won't be triggered unless you turn them on. Even the night clock, which is only on at certain times, certain hours of the day that you specify, kind of come on and just be there. It's not really in your face unless you want it to be. And then when you scroll through it, really, those aren't functions that I personally have used, and I don't see too many general users using them. And what's great is that they don't come up when you're using the phone generally throughout the day. Even the people widget is not something that I found myself using very often, primarily because the messaging app or messaging capability of it needed to be used with the built-in messaging application. Not really something that I need when I have Hangouts already set up with Google Voice. Even then, that function where you have the edge glowing when somebody calls you from the people widget, not something that I've used really much at all because I don't get too many calls throughout the day anyway. But it's really in the handling of the phone that things start to take a change, because the edges on the sides, rather than just have the blocky design of the original Galaxy S6, which actually is not even larger than the S6 Edge by very much, probably fractions of a millimeter, honestly. What happens on the S6 Edge is that the screen comes down to meet your palm, and that's where some better handling comes in, and that's something that I just couldn't get over. I thought it was a great choice, and in terms of design, this is not only an attractive phone, but those edges actually do help a little bit with the handling. The edges contour to your palm when you're trying to reach from one side to the other, and it makes this one of the easier to handle flagships of this year so far. And even when using the screen, you have that subtle effect of all of the scrollable elements in material design coming from the side, almost as if they're rolling into your view, just like Lon said in his great review. So those were just my thoughts on the edges of the S6 Edge. Underneath the surface and underneath the edges, everything else is still just as great as it is on the original Galaxy S6. The camera is really top notch, and I've taken some really great photos with it already, and even video using the OIS that's installed underneath. The software experience is also really great. It doesn't really annoy you with a lot of tutorials, and really a lot of its capabilities are not even there anymore from the original S4 and S5, and the ones that are there are only there for you to trigger them, much like the night clock and the Edge features if you want them to be there. But really, this is a pretty great phone, and if it wasn't for the price of getting those edges being somewhere between $100 to $250 in some places, I would really recommend this as the flagship phone that Samsung has put out. I still think that the Galaxy S6 is a great phone already, but if you want something a little bit more unique, the S6 Edge, like Lon said, is probably the phone to beat. But I am just happy that Samsung has made a huge leap forward in both of their phones for the Galaxy S line. Now, I am going to do a full versus between these two iterations of the Galaxy S line for this year, but until then you can stay tuned to Android Authority for that and even more from Android Authority, including our reviews of the S6 and the S6 Edge, which you can find right over on the side. And when you're done with all of that, check out even more content from our colleagues in Android, listen to the Friday Debate podcast, of which we had a double feature this past weekend, and you can head on over to androidauthority.com for even more, because we are your source for all things Android.